All right, welcome back to the Austin Film Festival, the 25th annual Austin Film Festival. Welcome the cast and crew of the Amaranth. We are so glad you guys came, and congratulations on your premiere last night. You had a packed house. So amazing.
It was pretty exciting.
We even had bats in there.
I noticed that. I was there and I was watching. I was like, is that a bat? And I was like, I think it is. Up there, just, totally entranced by the story and needing to be closer to the action.
Marketing materials really work. They got into the fabric of the city. That's right.
All right, so for the folks that did not get to make it last night, Melora, why don't you give us a no spoilers, little synopsis of the Amaranth.
No, I think Eileen.
Eileen Shields is going to do it.
It was a late night. They're putting me on the spot. The Amaranth is about a exclusive retirement community for the top 0.1%, where they can live out their twilight years with amazing vitality, that in a sort of cult-like atmosphere. And Lily Kendrick moves in there, and she is a little bit of an outlier, a little younger than the rest of the folk, and she starts to get kind of weirded out by the stuff that's going on there.
All right, so Eileen, this is your script and also your first go-round as an executive producer, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so where did the idea for the Amaranth germinate from, shall we say?
You know what? I'm kind of a news junkie.
What I did there.
There we go. Germinate. And there have been a lot of stories in the past couple of years about a lot of wealth in this country being sent into longevity, the studies of longevity medicine. Mm-hmm. Very, very rich, wealthy people who want to live forever. And simultaneously, we've seen all these stories about the horrible global refugee crisis that seems to have no solution. And in my mind, I just kept thinking, obviously the gap between the haves and have-nots grows wider every year. If all the money and the power is here, and these people have no solutions and no alternatives, take that to a dark place. What would that dark place look like? And that was the idea behind the Amaranth.
All right, so when did you and Albert meet? Albert, when did you come on board with this project and decide that you guys were going to make this story together?
Pretty early on, I think. Eileen had a pretty sophisticated finished draft by the time she showed it to me, but I think I was one of the first people she showed it to. Immediately, I sort of was drawn to it for those dark reasons, and also the producibility of it I found to be really attractive. Eileen had written scripts in the past, but this one just on the page felt like it definitely could be made right now. And I have to admit, that was like one of the most attractive elements of it. Like, it was a great story. It was very simply told. It was well written. And it was just like in a nice, neat little package.
It's a minimalist thriller.
Yeah, it can be, definitely.
So where did you guys shoot? You had this gorgeous set that's, all these beautiful fields and flowering plants. And look up the Amaranth online and see what the definition of the word is. Subliminal messaging. Google it. So where did you guys shoot that?
We shot it in Sun Valley, Idaho. It's a town that Eileen knows very well, and I'll let her talk about it, but she showed me the script and she said this would be the perfect place to shoot it, and I said let's take a look, and she was totally right on, and it was this great little town. It really took us in, and it really helped out in terms of giving us all this production value, and they were just so warm and welcoming.
Is it a retirement area?
It is not. I wouldn't call it that. I wouldn't call it a retirement area, but you certainly do have a lot of activities there, and if you have the resources to live there, you're very, very lucky, put it that way.
Sure, if you want to talk.
Older. I was going to say that, like a lot of mountain resort towns, the year-round population is, an older population, but it isn't necessarily a retirement community. I mean, but these are, the reason it was in my head was I did some of the writing there, which makes it sound like The Shining, like I was in the crazy environment. Oh, this is where the movie is. But that sense of beauty and isolation, and the fact that, you know, we only vacation there, my husband and I, but we would go hiking and people would be passing us on the trail and we'd turn around and they'd be 80 years old. And that sense of, I mean, it's a very active community. The people that live there year round, they ski in the winter and they hike and they bike and they fish and they, the whole gamut of things. And there's something both attractive and a natural when you're surrounded by that.
Sure.
And that played into the movie also.
Yeah, so we talked about this kind of a minimalist thing. It is, in my opinion, a thriller, but not a special effects thriller, you know, not a lot of dramatic lighting setups. There's no big storms happening, so you depend so much on your cast to create that tension. So, I mean, Melora, when you saw this part, like, where were you kind of drawing from? Because this isn't even a super chatty movie. You can't even really rely on dialogue for this.
Well, first I want to say I did Albert's short. And so he said, I have this script. And I was like, yes, because that's how I feel about Albert, working with him. And then I read the script, and the story was amazing to me. And then it's the character. She's really restrained. Like, it's internal combustion.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking
almost
last night.
Stepford level.
Convex meniscus. It's like this tension, like you're gonna crack, you know, always keeping it in, keeping it in, keeping it in. And that really appealed to me because it's not what I'm normally cast as. So I had this opportunity for the first time of like full on taking someone who has to just hold everything in.
All right, and Shiva, you played, there is, on the other side of these glamorous retirees, there is the staff of the Amaranth. Mm-hmm. And don't see a lot of them. They don't get as much screen time, and they're pretty de-glammed, really. But what attracted you to this part, you know, especially with, you know, it's a darker script, it's a darker story.
And I love that too. I mean, they're a little secretive as well.
Yes.
And I got that from reading the script, and I watched the film for the first time last night finally. And you could see all those moments, and I love that. And what attracted me obviously was the story overall. I thought that was amazing. And just like when the film finished last night, when I read the script, I was like, wow. Like, it was like, I was thinking about it for a good few days, like after I read the script, and it just makes you think, and all these questions in my head, and then I couldn't wait till I meet Albert and to talk about it and pick his mind a little bit, and it was very fascinating to me, and I mentioned this last night too because it's something that is not too far from what's going on right now,
Sure.
You know, and it's almost scary, and it comes to, you know, I guess like ethics and morality, but it's something that so could happen. So I loved that aspect of it. And then the other thing was Mia's character was also a little bit where my heart was because of my background, and I'm an immigrant as well, and sort of like what she has to go through, or the staff has to go through, and the difference between the poor and the rich, and how someone from a third world country has to survive as opposed to someone who's more privileged, and I could somewhat relate to that with my family, you know, migrating from country to country. So I definitely wanted to tell Mia's story because of that.
Yeah, it was really, you know, we talked about the restraint that you had to show, Melora, but in the same way, you know, bringing Mia to the character or to the screen, and Albert as well. Or Arthur. Arthur, my bad. You don't get the chance to, oh, well, this is my story, and this is why Mia has to be so strong and has to have this intensity and this passion for everything that she does, but somehow you have to convey that. So what were you kind of drawing from, or how did Albert bring you along and, coach you through this?
I don't think I did much coaching.
It's a lot of layers. And when you actually think of the backstory, aside from, I feel like the rest of the staff, like Arthur, for example, also had that. And it's just thinking about what's going on with their life, what she's fighting for, what she's going through with trying to survive her kid, trying to see her kid one day and give her a better life. And then what's the secret sort of in this community that some of the residents don't know about. And it's all those moments and all those thoughts and staying strong in that. I get emotional every time I talk. And trying to stay strong, fighting for their life and while surviving in this whole new world. And I think all those add the layers and all those moments where, she can't really speak, but just the expression says it all, and I love playing those. And I feel like sometimes, and one thing I love about what Albert did with it, sometimes words are not even necessary because the camera just picks up your whole thought process and what is going through with those tense moments, and I loved watching that. So for me, it was basically studying that character and her backstory and just portraying that without even talking too much. So. Yeah.
I loved the relationship between your two characters, and you don't understand till the end how closely linked they are, but they both end up facing this question, how far are you willing to go for, the person who means the most to you? What are you willing to sacrifice? What can you sacrifice for that person? So did you guys discuss that on set, go ahead and talk about your relationship.
We didn't talk about that. I spoke about it with Albert, but not to each other. We were just like in the moment.
Yeah.
Trying to connect, trying to talk, which was written. Like it's simply like we were in the I feel we were in the moment doing what was written, and through what was written, you have this trying to connect in a place where I feel we both felt there's a protocol, there's a certain behavior required. So you can't be like, all right, so what happened? Mm-hmm. Like that was not.
Tell me your story.
Yeah, no. But the thing you brought up, like what are you willing to sacrifice? Like I every time I see the film, I get really emotional at the end because there were certain points, like Albert knows, where I was like, for me, it's just, I have to become the character. And it was like, no! Like I couldn't hold it. So I had to like, Albert, but no, you can't do that. And then he was like, yeah, but think about it. Because I do have kids. Mm-hmm. It's like, what would you do? And I hope people come away from it going like, all right, that's not okay. But if, you have an ideal, like,
but then you question yourself.
Do this or that should be done. But if you're actually in the situation, you have a daughter, you have a son, you have a husband, you have a wife that you love more than anything, like, what would you do?
Yeah, it's so interesting that you put that in there because at first you have this, the cast of the ensemble characters where you're kind of like, oh, you ultra wealthy, entitled people, you terrible things, you. And then the doctor drops in, like, well, when it comes to someone you love, people will do anything for themselves. And you're kind of like, oh, but will they? And then he drops in, or they'll do anything for someone that they care about. And then they'll change their ethics.
Sell their soul. I felt like I sold my soul.
Absolutely. No, we see that in there. We get this idea of Lily about, oh no, she is going to be the rock and she can't be pushed from this place. And it's like, what would it take to push you from that place? And we do get an idea of that later on.
I think also, the daughter, Mia, is Mia. But I also know the daughter, I name her Mia. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I'm selling my soul in the end, but it's also like, there has to be some justification, there has to be some resolution for what she did, for what all these people did, for whatever, like, okay, fine, I'll sell my soul. And I was like, Albert, then she has to go kill herself. Like, you can't live with that. But you can't, because you can't do that to a child.
Right.
So it's the end, the way you wrote the ending, the way you directed the ending, the way it's edited, the way it's filmed, it's just like,
Yeah, and I'm going to have to go back and watch again because there are little, looking back, I'm just kind of like, oh, this was already set up. You start to see those breadcrumbs that you didn't quite pick up on. Yeah, there's the conversation at dinner about somebody takes their cat to the vet, which is, very over the shoulder type thing.
It was a true story that somebody told me.
Oh my gosh, that's disgusting.
I was in the middle of writing this, and Albert, he would look at it and he would say, there needs at this conversation there needs to be a natural story, like a natural conversation. And I was, contriving things in my head, and I literally went to a dinner party, and I think that a lot of writers will have this experience. I know that you guys have all written things that you will be working on something, and then you will hear something, and you think that is being told somehow, like the heavens is, but it's just, but ultimately it's just, you're just tuned into it. You're hyper tuned into it. And I went to a party, and it was actually my daughter's in-laws, and he worked for the board of some animal rescue thing, and he told us that story. And the whole time he was talking, I was like, do you mind if I just, and then it worked its way into the movie. But yes, along the way, and Albert and I talked about that all the time, was that structurally it is meticulously built that when you get to the end, you can go back to the beginning and you can see how all of the pieces were put together. I don't like a film that gives you some big gotcha and then you go, well, how was I supposed to ever? There was no indication. That came out of nowhere. But nothing in this movie comes out of nowhere, and that, I credit everybody here to that. They really, these women pulled things out of these characters. Their interaction was, I look at it on the screen and I think you're thinking all of these things that I know are not on the page, and I know that Albert's directing them to, putting them in this situation and everything, and so that's an exciting thing to see.
Yeah. Albert, you put a lot of I don't know if cutaways is the right word or not. It's been a long time since film school, but we get a lot of images of like cutting imagery, butcher shop imagery, should I say, like raw steaks. And there's the suckling pig, with its rib cage exposed and everything. So, I mean, was that out of the script, or this is all Albert?
That's Albert.
Bring that in.
Well, I don't know if it's all me. And just so we're clear, we did eat the whole pig. We had it for the crew.
Waste
ate it
not.
For lunch.
Waste not.
And it was good if you like that kind of thing. But yeah, that is a motif that we were putting in there. I think food as fuel for life is a strong motif in whatever I'm doing. I generally rely on that kind of imagery in terms of like my own life. But we definitely use that as a tool. And early on we talked about it, infusing the script with that kind of stuff, because it's very, in my mind, what's the word, like attainable. Everybody understands cooking and eating and living and all that kind of stuff. But then when you put like a raw steak, like you say, like on the screen, it does do something to you. It jars. It jars you because it's not something you see very often. And we didn't have a huge budget to have, big special effects, so we just used what we could. Yeah.
Because something so innocuous as a piece of meat that you would buy at the grocery store. When you take someone like Lily, who's very on edge, you know, that is, yeah, it grates on your nerves. And I noticed you did a similar thing with everyday sounds, like someone swirling their wine or something. All of a sudden, it is nails on a chalkboard. Right. It really builds that tension in Lily's mind. I thought that was a really cool touch.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we had an amazing sound team on the production side and on the post-production sound side, and I think we had those conversations early on where we were talking about doing all that kind of stuff. The ASMR stuff, like the really heightened sort of sound design, is something that Eileen has introduced me to ages ago. I think it's like a relaxation method. I think I probably learned that wrong. But
I was like, is it?
There was nothing relaxing about it.
Yeah, I think I'm never good at following directions.
Sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we definitely tried to weaponize those things as much as we could.
And it's a cool juxtaposition with, hopefully, I'm not spoiling anything. Like later on, we get the fetal heartbeat sound that is, you know, smooth. It's like waves and everything. So bringing that in, it's a hint of what's to come, but also a nice break for the audience. I think.
Yeah, we were definitely trying to subvert those kinds of things and get in there. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Well, you guys, what is the next step, Miss Executive Producer? Where is the Amaranth headed?
You know what? We were so excited to come here, and there was a lot of anticipation, and really, honestly, sometimes you just want to enjoy this premiere, and enjoy being together, and enjoy having this moment here in this great town, and really, I don't think we're going to talk about the next thing until this thing is over. So tomorrow.
Yeah. But well, did you guys all get to have family come in? Like, it was seriously like I got turned away at the door from the screening because they're like, we are at capacity and we cannot fit you in. And then she dragged a chair in for me so that I could sit down and watch. But yeah, so did your friends and family all get to come and check this out?
Well, yeah, my husband's the co-executive producer.
Oh,
He's still in bed, so sleeping. So
it is 10:30 in the morning.
We're enjoying Austin. But yes, and Jen, Albert's wife, is here.
That's awesome.
Yeah. He is.
That's true.
We
it's for real.
were up late watching that Dodger game last night.
All right. Well, congratulations, guys. We're so glad that you all came down. Hope to see you all in Austin again, and have fun while you're here.
Thank you.